welcome in to a new season and new era of the Bleav in Twins podcast. I am your host, Anders Pryor. Lovely to be back, joined alongside Zac Tipton, who I wanted to match with my Villanova hat as well. But the problem is that because of the shape of my face, when I put it on, it's just like an egg, basically, right?
It does actually look like an egg. It does,
So
to
I'm,
be
I'm
fair.
not. So I'm gonna. I needed to show it to the public so that they could have that nice little match moment, and then we're just gonna move on. So I can show
Sounds
off
good.
the hair
I
and
went
everything.
I went golfing today, so that's why I have the full polo hat on
Yeah.
today. So I told Anders today that I was gonna be a few hours late because I was doing homework and actual work. Yeah, no, I was golfing. Um, which is why I was running late. But
Oh yeah.
uh,
What was it? Yeah. What did he say? Something about
I
uh
have an essay. I have a giant essay homework assignment. Yeah, no, I did not
yeah,
have
a
a giant essay.
big homework and assignment I need to finish and have a few work essays to do. Yeah. Right. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, no, I was golfing. Can
You
confirm.
should have told me that. That would have been. I mean, I wouldn't have been mad. I would have asked you how did you do?
It was not a pretty day at the course. We only played 9 holes because
Okay.
it was not a pretty day.
Well, that's what you
He
get
was,
for being dishonest.
yeah, exactly. It was karma. Literally, it's like I said to you that I had like a quadruple bogey on the next hole. So
Yeah.
shout out to me for that.
Yes.
Um, but no, it was fun. We had a good day. It was a very nice day out. It's like 73 degrees here,
Yeah.
and sunny. So perfect day to be out for golf. And then, it was just slow at the course though, really busy.
Yeah.
Um, but I got back just in time because like I was able to watch the end of that second half of the Wolves game, and now the
Mhm.
Wolves are, I think they're down a bit here. They want I think Lakers want to run, but
If you see both of our eyes darting, me up and Zach to the side, it's because we have Wolves and Lakers on right now.
can
Um,
confirm.
that would I want your because it is this is a Minnesota sports podcast. I do want your kind of early take on that because I did pick the Lakers in this series initially, and then before the series happened, I saw some really sharp content on like the matchup, like guard to guard, like matchup stuff with the two starting lineups, and so far that's come out really. Yeah, it's a 14-0 run through almost 4 minutes now. But your
Um,
overall thoughts on the series, Zach?
my thoughts on the series are the Wolves look really good. They look like they're playing experienced basketball. When Jaden McDaniels plays like Jaden McDaniels can, this team is pretty much unbeatable, in my opinion. I think he had 30 points last a couple nights ago in game three. Um, and when him and Edwards are going for 30 and 30, it's just this team's really hard to beat because when McDaniels is on, is such a key part to this team. Um, geez, Austin Reeves with a deep shot there. Um, but I don't know. I'm hoping we can win this. Winning this game here would be huge. I'm not like insanely confident, but if we could take a 3-1 lead, I just think that's a really big step to be
Yeah,
in.
they were saying on the Knicks and Pistons game that 3-1 leads result in series wins 95% of the time. I
Like
forget if that's all time or in a certain duration. I'm assuming they meant all time.
I think
Um,
it's pretty much close. I remember. Oh no, but I remember. Oh no, Mike, get up. But I
oh,
remember.
I'm a few. I think I'm about 30 seconds ahead of you.
Okay, but
Um,
I think personally, like I remember, like there was a stat that like the Lakers comeback on the Warriors when the Warriors up 3-1 in 2016 was like one of the first time that's ever happened. It was like one of like I forget what the stats are. I remember that being like one of the first times that's ever happened that a team's come back from 3-1 to win.
yeah,
Um, but it was nuts. It was fun. We've enjoyed it, but I'm hoping we can win one here. I'd rather not be 2-2 because remind me, how does the first round go? Is it 2-3-2? Is that how it goes? You play the first 2 games at
No,
home.
no, that's baseball. Basketball is 2-2-1-1-1.
Okay. Yeah, so winning here and getting that last win there, I mean, you basically win home field advantage. That's basically what it is. You don't want the Lakers to take back the advantage when they have 2 games in Staples. I guess
Right.
not Staples anymore. What's it called now?
Crypto.com, but it's Staples in
Yeah,
spirit.
in spirit, yeah. But when they have 2 games in LA, you don't want to lose this one here.
Hmm.
Um, Especially with how insane this crowd's been. I think the atmosphere in this game's been awesome.
Hmm.
Um, I think Target Center is not one of the greatest arenas, but the atmosphere is awesome.
Yeah.
Um, they definitely need to redo Target Center a bit though. I'm hoping they do that soon. But no, it's fun, and I'm hoping. There we go. Okay. But anyway, so yeah, we'll be looking side to side every once in a while. But
Yeah.
um, this is a sports podcast, as you guys know. Um, we do love our Wolves. We love our Minnesota sports. But this is also a sports contest where we do talk about the NFL a little bit.
Yeah.
And if you aren't familiar or live under a rock, the NFL draft just happened.
Hmm.
Um, the NFL draft obviously is the day where all the top prospects in the sport get drafted and um, find their new homes. And we had some shockers, I would say, in
Yeah.
this draft. I felt like, honestly, though, Anders, in my opinion, the first round was pretty boring in terms of there was no like insane reaches, like in my opinion, in the first round.
Yeah.
I feel like every pick in the first round you kind of felt like was a first rounder.
Right.
Um,
So Zach and I have a pretty the NFL draft is one of the real building blocks of Zach and I's friendship because because we both love the draft and we're both college football fans too. Not as much as the NFL, but we're college football fans and we love the draft and we love making mocks and doing mocks and talking prospects and watching. We watch the combine to get like start to finish and all that kind of stuff. And one of the cool kind of things that's happened is so in regards to the NFL draft is obviously the movie Draft Day is a huge part of every football fan's life. It's a movie that Zach has been a big fan of for longer than I have. There was a point in like my relationship with the movie where I understood it and I liked it, but I thought that it was a little corny and cheesy and gimmicky and inaccurate. And one of the things that I've wished for a while is that someone should make the Draft Day movie in the style of Moneyball, where just like the dialogue is just more sort of refined and a lot of the details of things are more accurate and less saturated. But in the past year to year and a half, I have the whole thing of, and this is, and just correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, but the whole it's so bad that it's good in almost like a romanticized way. That part of it has grown on me. And so
yeah.
now the tradition of it, I definitely appreciate more than I did a year ago. And I watched it on Wednesday night and I had such a blast. It's actually really enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, no, I enjoy it. I watch it a lot before draft day, and I actually got the opportunity to introduce one of my best friends back home in South Dakota to the movie, who is also the biggest NFL draft fan, one of the bigger NFL draft fans you'll meet from a very recent standpoint. He only started really getting into football like 6 or 7 years ago, but since then has become so addicted to it that he basically has a whole like 10-page spreadsheet on every single position player prospect in the draft and like knows every single position player in the draft.
Mhm.
Um, and so he's so invested. So I introduced him to draft day and he loved it. And I was like, that's awesome. So glad you
The
love it. Um,
two I know you wanted to move through the draft stuff quickly, Zach. So before talking about Shador, do you have any strong thoughts or comments on the Vikings? I know that you and I had some disagreement on the first round. The Vikings making the decision to reach on Donovan Jackson out of a position of need. I thought that Eamon Ward.
it wasn't a reach. First of all, I don't think it was a reach. A lot of people had him going first round. Like
Mhm.
he was very much like a first round prospect. And a lot of people had him as like a top 2 interior offensive lineman in the draft.
Right.
Top 2, top 3. Andrews did not feel that way.
No, the board that I use the most and the system that I use the most had him ranked, I want to say, is the 44th ranked player in the draft. I don't always hate it. I don't completely dislike it when, and again, like for the Vikings, it is justified because like Zach talked about before, like off camera, the Vikings had such a gap between picks that you had to be very careful. I thought that with Jahdae Barron off the board a few picks before, I thought that would have been the perfect opportunity to step in and take Eamon Worry. But pure guards are a more premium position, so that I understand.
I also will say that Anders believed that there were not going to be a lot of interior offensive linemen drafted in the first round. In
Right.
his mock draft, he only had like 1 or 2, and he had Gray Zabel.
Yeah, Zabel was the only one. The Cowboys, it wasn't a crazy surprise, but the Cowboys reaching on Tyler Booker, I think, was maybe the only like semi surprise of the night. But again, it's not a bad pick necessarily.
But then also, like, you have to remember, like 5 interior offensive linemen all went like within like 3 picks of like within like 5 picks of each other. Like they went, like a bunch of interior offensive linemen just started going right when the Vikings were picking as well. So, I think it was a must pick for us, honestly. If you look at the offensive line on the Vikings, we had Darrison O'Neal, the tackles position, that is in a pretty set for the last like 5 years on our team. Darrisaw has been an absolute incredible prospect when he's healthy, and O'Neal has been pretty much a very insane veteran piece that makes the Pro Bowl every year, as a tackle as well. And then we added Will Fries and Ryan Kelly in free agency, which got us a guard and a center, and that left us with 1 guard position left really to fill, which was being filled at that point by Blake Brandel, who was one of the worst PFF rated guards in the NFL. And I just kind of felt like we needed to add a different piece there. I didn't want Brandel starting a guard, especially I don't know if we all watched the Lions game, we all watched the Rams game. I mean, the interior offensive line was a big issue. So that happening, I think was a really important position to fill, was that last interior offensive position. And I think that was a really good fill with Donovan Jackson. And so I am very excited about it. I think he'll be pretty much the immediate starter at guard there. And that pretty much sets us up to have 5 really good talents at guard.
Right.
So 5 really talented people at every position of the offensive line is what I meant.
Do you have much to comment on in terms of the rest of the draft? The Vikings only drafted.
We only drafted 5 guys.
So there's not as much to talk about, but
I really felt like our special teams, like kick returning and punt returning, was an issue last year. And so I feel like Ty Felton really can produce in that situation. I also feel like he'll be a good number 3, possibly number 4, depending on where we consider him versus our other number 3. And then me personally, I really like the Kobe King pick because I really liked him at Penn State. If I remember correctly, I think he was one of Penn State's best defensive players. Maybe not prospect wise, but like he was the guy I always like knew the name of was Kobe King. And so I like that pick a lot. I don't know a lot about the Georgia defensive tackle that we got, or the Georgia defensive guy that we got. I think it was Tyrion something, or
Tyrion Ingram Dawkins.
That's it.
Yeah.
The Georgia guy. I don't know anything about him. And I don't know anything about the Pitt tight end either.
Gavin Bartholomew, I thought, was one of the more under ranked tight end prospects in the draft. I thought that the 2 tight end prospects that I thought were going very under the radar throughout the process were were Jake Brenningstool from Clemson and then Gavin Bartholomew, because both of them, and obviously Bartholomew, especially because he's on the Vikings now, they're kind of more in that tight end wide receiver hybrid role, like where like Bartholomew is very good as a route runner and a very fluid open space kind of athlete, which I feel like in a tight end room that's led by TJ Hawkinson is a really nice kind of continuity piece there. Even if he is just going to be the third stringer, there is a clear philosophy at the position. So I thought that was a good pick for the 6th round.
Yes. Like I said, the only name I really recognized there was Kobe King, because I remember watching him at Penn State. And so that's the only guy I really recognize, but I liked the Felton pick. I liked the King pick and Bartholomew and Tyrion, the Georgia guy. I don't even know his name really, but neither of them I really don't know much about. So I'll learn more about them as it goes on. But Kobe King is something I really like a lot. Um, but anyway, with that being said, I think we should talk about the elephant in the room, which is the Shador.
Yeah.
Sanders falling. Andrews was one of the only people in our friend group that I think actually had him taking the under. I think his over under was like 21 and a half, and I think
it was 20 and a half, or yeah, I
20 and
think
a half.
my
And Andrews was the only one taking the under. I
right.
think everyone else in our group took the over in that situation.
I thought like so I had him going to the Saints at 9. Obviously, I don't hate them taking Kelvin Banks at all. I think that they, if I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, but they did not pick up Trevor Penning's 5th-year option, which that's been a really disappointing pick to this point. So my philosophy was, okay, like Carr might miss the whole year. Like they do not have anyone other than Spencer Rattler, and I saw that there were reports that they liked Dart more than Shador. I wasn't 100% sure on that. The reporting on Dart was so all over the place. I did, because when I was making my official mock, I did consider having Dart at 9 to the Saints as well, but I just took the safer route and put Shador there. But I knew that I thought that him falling out of the 1st round was a small possibility in a vacuum, but was bigger than was being nationally discussed. But I mean, and because when the Browns, people thought, okay, the Browns are trading back, like they might take him. To me, in my mind, Zach, the Browns trading back to get another 1st next year means they're getting ammunition for next year's quarterback class, which is significant.
Which is 100% better, first of all.
100% better. So they get Mason Graham 2 seconds for players that they believe in and get at less expensive, and 2 firsts next year. But I have to tell you, like this fall is like, it's shocking, but I thought that there was a real chance he falls to the 2nd round, but I did not anticipate something of this magnitude happening, especially, and this is the part of this that I want your opinion on, because they took Dylan Gabriel 50 picks ahead, which is really confusing to me. So I don't know if this was an ownership pick, Shador, but just I want your holistic thought.
Okay, so my personal opinion is, so there's a lot of reports coming out about this whole situation, right? There was a report that Shador bombed interviews purposefully for teams he didn't want to go to. There was also reports, and I saw a really clip that was like, hey, this is the owners saying, we think you did your draft process incredibly wrong. We think you were way too cocky about the whole draft process, and we don't want any other players being this cocky about the draft process, and we want you to, and we're kind of punishing the guy for it. It's like, it did feel like a little bit of like a punishment by the NFL for him being very, very like cocky, and him being very like I mean, I think it's cocky is really the only word of the
Right.
whole draft process. I mean, really, that's what it was. It was his dad, and it's a lot of media attention too, right? That's the
Right.
other thing, right? Like having a guy like Shador, there's a lot of media attention to having a guy like Shador.
Because
Um,
being mindful, a lot of the things that people were saying about Shador this cycle were the same things that people were saying with about Caleb Williams last cycle, but Williams stayed at the 1-1 the whole year because the talent outweighed the baggage. And this was the NFL saying, we don't think that you're good enough to justify taking on your baggage. And to your point with like what the ownership was saying, Nick Wright said something really smart, which I think is reflective of what you're saying, which was this is not indicative of who Shador will be as a professional athlete moving forward, but it is 100% indicative of what the NFL as a whole thinks of Shador.
yeah, and in my opinion, do I think he's worse than Dylan Gabriel? Absolutely not. Do I think he's worse than there is a question in my opinion is like ranking the top 5 QBs. It was Ward 1 for sure. I also had Dart as my number 2 QB on my rankings, so that was not surprising. Milrow was my third QB on my rankings. So like
Mhm.
Milrow was the third QB on my rankings because his talent to me is something I'm very excited to see. And then it was Shador, and then Shout. Is it Shuck? Is it
I
Shuck?
think it's, yeah, Shog, or however you say it.
I forget how to pronounce, but like
Yeah.
that was my top 5.
Mhm.
Um, I had heard reports that Shao might go really high, uh, in terms of that, so I'm not surprised by that. Um, I just think that's what it was, and I think it's just unfortunately he got really cocky, and that's just you can't do that in the draft.
Right.
It's known that anything can happen in the NFL draft. I mean, you
Especially
want
when, like, again, like the reason that this is viewed as a weaker class, like when we talk about that, like he is a part of that discussion. Like if it would be viewed as a stronger quarterback class if he was a better quarterback, which I know sounds really simple, but it's true. And then we had all these reports about him like there's this like almost like a sense of entitlement where he was like intentionally like sandbagging or like throwing away
yeah,
um top 30 interviews with teams that he didn't want to go to,
yeah,
because I think the only teams that he really wanted to go to from my understanding were the Steelers, Raiders, and Giants, and especially the Giants. But and everyone else he was just like he was intentionally like fluking it basically. But I mean, Zach, I mean, they invested in Gabriel before Sanders, so they like. Is it like? Is it a? I know we want to do mostly twin stuff today, so I'll just ask you this, and then we'll move on. Is it a possibility that Shador does not make the Browns roster
I don't think so. Um,
because they're paying Deshaun? Obviously, they're paying Flacco. Like right, Pickett, they're paying a little bit, but it's a very small amount, but they are still paying him. And I mean, they drafted Gabriel before Shador, so why? Unless Shador is miles better than Gabriel, why would the tiebreaker not go to Dylan?
yeah, you're right. I mean, I guess you're right. I mean, I think it's possible. You definitely are gonna have 5 QBs on your roster. The
Right.
question is, will they cut Flacco or Pickett? That's the real
Right.
question: is will they cut one of those guys
Right.
and keep both Dylan Gabriel, and then send at that point? Then would I'm guessing Gabriel would be the number 3, and then Shador would be on the practice
Right.
squad. Would be my
Right.
assumption.
Because the thing is, Zach, I know that you and I are both big fans of Kevin Stefanski, but the problem is that he got a big benefit of the doubt last year when they won like 4 or 5 games. If he produces a similar season, like a real conversation starts to happen about his job. And so I don't think he's making any kind of fancy or cute decisions here. I think he really wants the best 3 or 4 guys. And so I think he's willing to be painted a certain picture in the public.
But
If
I will also say this: I think the Browns won the draft with getting Mason Graham, and then also getting who did they get in the second round that I really liked as well?
uh
Uh,
Carson Schweisinger,
was that who they got? They got another guy late in the second round that I really
oh
liked as well.
Judkins,
Yeah, they got Johnson, they got Judkins, and then they took, which I really liked him as a running back position as
real
well.
okay, yeah, real quick before okay, this will be the
Okay,
last thing. Let's do
yes.
Twins. Like 3 biggest winners from the draft for like teams being.
Patriots, Seahawks, Falcons.
Okay. I'm going to go Seahawks, Panthers, Colts. The Patriots, I love Campbell and I love them getting Henderson, but they took a punter and a long snapper, and you just can't do that right now. I am with you on the Seahawks, them having, I think, the best draft. They got
They got
Zabel,
Zabel and Eamon
Wari, and Arroyo, who could be, the third, who I think was regarded by some as the third best tight end prospect. They got Riley Mills, but I think my other two, I would say the Colts getting Warren at 14 and getting TJ Tuimoloau and getting Jalen Travis, who I think is one of the most underrated offensive tackle prospects in the draft, and then the Panthers. They got Ted McMillan, which I think both you and I really wanted them to do. They got Nick Scourton, who could have easily went in the first round, like with the Eagles or Chiefs pick. And then they got Princely Umanuelan, who I think is great. And then they also got Lathan Ransom, who I think is a very underrated prospect at the safety position. And then they also shored up their running back room with Trevor Etienne, who we've kind of been talking about for a while. So
yeah,
but I'm with you on the Seahawks 100%. Then having
I think the Seahawks may have the best draft, and then I think I will say this: I do like the Vikings getting Sam Howell. I know it was a draft trade, so it kind of works. But I was getting Carter. One of my friends giving me a lot of crap for us getting Howell, but I really like the move. I think KOC will work really well with Howell. I think Howell has a chance, and we desperately needed a backup, so I'm willing to trade a 5th-round pick to desperately need a backup. Like we desperately needed it, so I'm willing to trade 30 picks for it. That's the last I'll say on that.
All right.
Moving on, though, it is Twins time.
It's Twins time.
And if you guys do not know, the Twins are one of the worst teams in baseball to start the year. It's been very brutal. It's been like one of the worst starts to a season we've had since.
So let me set you up here. So the Twins, so not just the Twins. I think there was a day like back in like early April where the entire AL Central was 2-5. I'm pretty sure, something like that. And then the Twins, for a while we're at the brunt of that. Who at one point were 4-11. Which is, like Zach said, one of the worst starts I've had in a while. And then they've won 5, but they've had a little bit of a second coming in this first kind of opening month, winning 5 of their last 6 to now be up to 12-16, sweeping the Angels, winning 2 out of 3 against the White Sox. So I know we want to talk about a couple of specific players, but Zach, your kind of outlook on just the momentum of the season on a whole, and also any commentary on the Angel series, because I know that Ryan.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. But for now, I wanted to say this: the AL Central, first of all, had a really bad start. Although I will say the Tigers look dangerous so far. They're 18-10. They've had some really good series, but the AL Central in a whole is not good this year. I think right now, like the Twins are only a game and a half back of the Royals for 3rd in the division. The Royals are kind of coming back to earth this year, and the Guardians, like they always do, are right around that just like 15-12, like just over 500 mark. So we'll see how that goes. Throughout the year, we'll keep track of it. the season itself has started off pretty poorly. Like, yes, it's the Angels and the White Sox who's beat 5-6, but for the most part, it's in a pretty poor start to the year for the Twins. Um, the attendance is one of the, I think it's officially the worst like attendance we've had in Target Field history. Um,
So I wanted to ask you about that actually because I don't know any numbers on that, but in the Twins games that I've watched, like it looks much more bare.
they broke the record. Like they broke the record for least amount of fans at a game in Target Field history. Um, it was like 10,000 fans or something like that at a game.
Please.
Um, which was I think which was the least amount of fans there. So other than that, like I mean, it's just bad. I mean, it's just bad. I mean, and here's the thing: it's on the ownership, right? We've talked about this. It's on the ownership. Um, the owners themselves have done a very poor job of getting fans back into it, right? They didn't spend money. 2 years in a row now in a row, they've cut funding basically. Allowed us to not really go for any high level prospects. Our big free agent signings were Harrison Bader and Ty France, which to be fair, they've been two of the best players on our roster, but still, like those were our two big free agent signings, and we got like 4 million apiece. Um, it just wasn't a lot, and so it's just been very brutal. We're gonna talk about it here in a bit, but like our stars themselves have looked very bad to start the year. Um, Correa, we're gonna talk about him a little bit later, but he's looked bad. Buxton's kind of been one of our only like really few consistent guys that's consistently been producing. Um, and then just the injuries starting to pile up for us already. We're gonna talk about him again later, but Luke Keeschel was a star prospect for us. He's now out with a broken forearm. Um, Royce Lewis is still out. Um, other couple guys on the IL, I think, are uh, who else? We had another interior offense, like an interior middle infielder that's on the IL. And Matt Wallner, he's on the IL as well. So that's like another guy that's been really out for us. That's been a really big piece for us. So it's just it has not been a great start to the year. And not to mention our bullpen has been absolutely brutal. Our bullpen has cost us a lot of games this year. Um, and so with that being said, um, I think the only thing we really have going for us at this point has been our starting pitching. Um, and as Anders said, kind of looking at the Angels series, Simeon with Richardson pitched a gem. Joe Ryan just pitched one of his probably his best start of the season, his best start in a long time. 7 innings, 4 hits, no earned runs, 11 strikeouts. Um, just absolutely dominant performance by him. And so it's really fun to see our kind of stars come alive there. But like Woods Richardson last night, he went Woods Richardson went 5.1 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned run, 7 strikeouts. Um, and then in the game before that, we had um I think we had Pablo Lopez go, and he went 5 innings, 2 earned runs, 6 strikeouts, and I believe all two of those runs came in the first inning as well. So he had a pretty good outing as well. Um, but for now, I think it's just we gotta hope and see if we can come back. But I've already started asking on Twitter who are guys we could possibly trade at the deadline, acting like we're going to be sellers because I can totally see that happening this year. Um, and a name I've seen a lot is I have seen a lot of Correa possibly being a
Hmm.
guy we do trade away, which would suck, but it is how it is. And so, I mean, you got to think about it kind of on the whole. Um, this team has been very bad, and if it continues this way, Rocco is probably gone. I could see Rocco not making it the entire season, and then um I could also see us trading a lot of top players at the deadline. It just is.
Yeah,
However,
Correa. Correa is particularly at Atlanta. So 187 average, 1 home run, 8 RBIs, 528 OPS. I don't. Yeah, the him being traded at the deadline as like a possibility. I don't think that's that like surprising or like stimulating of like a conversation. I feel like we all understand like why that would be the case. I If I'm Rocco, I would, if anything, want him to be traded for a sense of job security, because I think there is an understanding right now amongst everyone that the Twins are not ready to compete for a World Series in this state. And and if at the bare minimum, Rocco can be like, okay, so Correa got traded, we got these prospects in return. Like, you need to let me be here longer so I can fully integrate these, whatever AAA guys we get into our system. Versus if he's just given this roster and they finish the year with 77 wins, then he's 100% like cooked.
Yeah,
And I think it would take a pretty disastrous middle of the year for him to leave partway through the season, because we saw the collapse the Twins had last year and Rocco being pardoned for that. So that's a little hard to tell whether it's like, well, is that indicative of them giving him like a longer leash, or is it more, hey, like, we saved you essentially when we had every right to fire you, so you better produce. But it's me, if that was the case, you probably could have like justified firing him at 4-11, right? So
100%.
I'm not really sure. My guess is he makes it the whole year, but I think to me, if they don't make the playoffs again, he is 100% gone, especially if they keep Correa.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just think, I don't know, Rocco is. I like Rocco. I've always been a Rocco supporter, but at some point, you gotta possibly pull the leash if things continue the way they've been. The disastrous end of last year, the disastrous start to this year.
Yep.
It's just, you kind of kept Rocco along knowing that, hey, you have to produce, and he hasn't produced, and it's just how it is. And oh my gosh, we cannot make a shot to save our lives. Um, it's just, sorry, this is brutal.
No, it's all right.
We cannot hit anything. Um, Randall is missing every single shot he shoots right now. But no, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. It's just bad. It's just at this point, things have to be considered. I think everything's in play. Um, one thing I was not expecting so far this year has been the kind of bad start Griffin Jax has had. I kind of expected Jax to kind of come this year and almost compete for Duran's job in the closer role. Because Duran's a great pitcher, but his velocity has dropped. It's not what it used to be. If you actually look at the stats, you'll realize that Duran is only averaging about 101 on his fastball, 100 on his fastball, which is a lot lower than what it used to be. So his velocity has dipped. And that is a little nerve-wracking, obviously. So I expected Jack's going to come in and compete, but he hasn't. Cole Sands looks good, obviously. Is he another guy that I feel like he might be on the IL as well, but I'm not sure. And then I think Alcala's had a really bad start to the year, like a really bad start to the year, and so it almost makes you wonder how much longer he's got left on this team. We'll see though. There's a lot of moves I think the Twins need to make. For one, I like the thought of having a very young pitching staff this year. I'm not the biggest fan of keeping Paddock in the starting rotation right now. I think he's looked very shaky. And when you have guys like David Festa and Debbie Matthews in AAA dominating, I feel like you kind of have to. I feel like you kind of have to give them a chance over a guy like Paddock, who has been consistently injured and struggling.
I do want to shout out Danny Colom, though.
Oh, he's been awesome. Danny Colon's been awesome, and I knew he
He's
was going to
been
be good.
He's been the best. Yeah, and the one off-season pickup on the pitching side, he's probably been the best reliever. Um,
Yeah,
I know it's only 10.2 innings of work. I'm pretty sure that's the no, but I mean he's absolutely killing it. And yeah, 0.47 whip. Um,
yeah, like he's nuts. I thought, I mean, Brock Stewart's back in the rotation, I think now, so I think that's gonna be huge to have him back. Um, and then I really like, who do I really like? I really like, I think Topa has a chance to be very good on this rotation as well, in this situation as well. But we will see how that goes as it gets as it gets closer and stuff and gets further along in the season. But for now, we just gotta wait and see. We dominated the bad teams, which was good to see. Can we actually beat a good team? We got Cleveland coming up, um, which I think would be actually perfect kind of way to end this show is talking about this Cleveland series. So from what I believe, if I remember correctly, Twins have Cleveland in their next series. Um, and from what I believe, I'm assuming it's gonna be 1 second. Let me check to see if they have the starting pitchers kind of figured out for that series. Um, I assume they do, but give me 1 second here on that. Check it out. I've not looked at that. I've not looked yet. I'm kind of taking it one game at a time. So yeah, it's gonna be Ober, Paddock, Lopez, Woods Richardson is gonna be our is going to be our rotation. So I think if you look at that and you say you'll probably win the Lopez game, you'll probably win one other game. I would say split at this point in my life. I think 2-2 is very reasonable, but it could also go as bad as 0-4. I could totally see that happening. Depending on how the pitching looks, especially the relief core. Um, so we'll see. Anders, your thoughts on the Guardians series in general, and just your thoughts on that?
well, so I mean so this is an interesting kind of discussion here because the Guardians have actually had a little bit of a slow start on the starting pitching, and I one of my favorite acquisitions, like in terms of just underrated in terms of potential impact, was Luis Ortiz going to the Guardians from Pittsburgh. That has not panned out so far. He's 2-3 with a 5.96 ERA and a 1.56 WHIP.
Yeah,
Tanner Bybee off to a slow start, 5.19 ERA, 1.46 WHIP. And then so I mean, Gavin Williams has been a little more stable, but the strikeout numbers are kind of all over the place. He is 8 and then 2 and then 5 and then it's all over the place. So this is actually so we've kind of caught them at a slow start. So this is a strength weakness kind of pull. I think having Lopez against Ortiz, I would consider that essentially a guaranteed win for the Twins. That would be my
I
prediction.
don't say anything's a guarantee this year so
But
far.
right, and that is fair. But that would be if I had to pick one game that I feel the strongest about winning. It's 100% that one. So
I
that
agree. I think it is that one. That's
and
what I feel
then
the strongest about.
I think outside of that, it's all relatively even-ish. Although because Paddock has obviously been off to a really bad start, but he does get Bybee, who is also so he gets a little bit of a break there matchup wise. But no, the Guardians, strength last year was this rotation, and especially in their youth, very slow start, bad start. So we're catching them. This is a good time to have them in a 4-game series where these like long 4-game series where the bullpen usage really spirals and becomes really important. I think they're we're catching a lot of their top guys in their soft spots. And so I think blowing them up early is we're in a good spot to do that. And that's a really good important to get that split that you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I agree for sure. I when I was in Bleav that as well. I think this is a good spot to get a split. I really would like to get a split here. That'd make me feel a lot more confident. Um, but we'll see how things go. But that is really all I think we really have for the show today. We're kind of just watching this Wolves game and hoping that the Wolves can, finish off this comeback, maybe win this, but right now it's not looking great.
Just right. Well, I mean, I'm ahead of you, so we'll see about that. But real quick, because we talked about Correa being, a potential trade person. What other top guys do you have in mind for that?
I had no other names really. That was the only name I saw that could be a really big guy, but I could also see us trading, some of our relievers. I could see Griffin Jacks possibly being traded, which would suck, but I could see him being traded. I haven't really looked at it yet that much, but I know Correa is one name that I've seen a lot saying Twins could possibly trade him.
I'm with you there. I would not be surprised if he's the only name traded. And again, even if we were hovering around 500 and we were in that weird middle ground territory where we do a little bit of buying and a little bit of selling, where both sides are justified, I still think shipping him, if he is just genuinely struggling, is not the worst idea. I'm okay with that. I'm very content with that.
Yeah, no, 100%. But anyway, I think that's all we really have for the show today. Anders, what is your anything else you want to add, or do you want to do the send off for us?
I don't think so. Yeah, no, we're gonna see how this Wolves game turns out and hopefully go up 3-1, and we'll come back soon in a really joyful mood because the Lakers are out. So we'll see how that goes. But it's wonderful to be back, Zach. It's great to see you. This has been the Bleav in Twins podcast, season 2, episode 1. I have been Anders Pryor. Go Twins, go Wolves, go Vikings. Zach, great to see you. We'll see you guys again very soon.